So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file. Sure, put this in my shared. I'm going to call this component FetchUser. So that's essentially what it's doing. .js. And then I threw this out in Slack. And this is what this component's going. This is the code. Okay. I spelled authenticated so wrong. Okay. So before we look at the code, let me show you where we're going to use this, and then we can look at it. So this is the code, but where we're going to use it is in our app.js. I'm going to wrap this FetchUser component. So I'm going to pull that FetchUser and I'm going to wrap it around my whole, just those routes. I could have my nav bar above it and my footer below it. But I want to throw this inside of my routes. And what the component does at a high level, so I'll just throw this in a comment, like without looking at the code, FetchUser, what it's going to do, it's going to see if the user is logged in. Do we have a valid user? So before we render our routes, it's going to check to see if we have a user. Let's see. I think maybe this looks like this path is wrong. So if I go to fetch user, I think I need to go back one more, ... So it needs 2 backslashes. So I need to go back to that goes back one directory. I need to go back one more into my providers and then grab the auth provider. Pull it from that file, auth provider. So I'm grabbing some state. And also, oh crap, this one doesn't have authenticate. This is also using this authenticated Boolean, which we don't have, so we need to provide that. So what this authenticated is going to be, it's just going to be a Boolean. It's just to make this maybe a little more readable. I'm going to set this right here. Authenticated. Let's see, how do I want to do this? Set this equal to the user. I mean, essentially what I want to do is like, do we have a user? True and false. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not worth it. Actually, I'm just going to do this and I'll select this back out. I'm just going to pull my user from here. And I'll slack out this change. You don't really need that authenticated helper. Okay. I'm going to delete this and edit it. Just in the name of being clean.
This is the fetch user file.
Yeah, and I'll reselect this out. So it has those two changes. So it has the right path. And instead of using the authenticated, I'm just going to say user, because really remember, if we have a user defined, that means they're like logged in. The user is from like whenever we do a login or a log out, we're going to set the user. And when we first initially create the user, we set the user state to null, or when we log out, we set the user to null. Cool. But we'll go look at this in a little more detail in just 1 second. So let's go to like login. I'm going to log in. I'm going to do this as well. I'm just going to stop my server. What's this going on? Yarn start. Hmm. 3001. So let's log in. Why is that not grabbing my user? Set user is not a function. Okay, cool. So I'm getting an error. Set user is not a function. So this is one other thing I need to do. So what I'm going to do in my auth provider, I do need to send. So here I have the user state, but I also need to send this function now to my provider. So inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and provide that set user function too. Okay. Notice now when I'm refreshing, I kind of just want to show this work and then we'll go look at the code. When I refresh, I have a user. Like it's not logging me out. So that refresh issue is getting fixed. And that is the fetch user is help as part of that is doing that. So let's look at what we did. So, I mean, the one change I needed to make to my provider is I need to send the function to set the user because my fetch user wants to use that. So let's go see what this component is doing. So first of all, it's pulling the user and that set user state setter and getter from my provider. So that's why I needed to add this set user to the provider because I'm going to use it here. All right. So what happens, there's a use effect on here. And we're going to run this check user component or function when this component mounts. Okay. But let's see, once again, let's just review where this fetch user is used. It's used right here in my app.js, where it's kind of wrapping all of my routes. Okay. Let's skip this function for a second and let's look at what this returns. Okay. So there's this, we have this state in here that's like loaded or set loaded, and this is just a Boolean. So what we're doing here is we're doing this check. We're checking to see if the user's there, and we're going to wait if this component has been loaded or this prop has been changed to loaded. We're going to do props.children. If it's not loaded, we're going to render null. what does it mean for like a component to render null? Let's just see what's going on here. And think about what this component is and where we're using it. So if I have a fetch user component that renders null here,
It's going to render everything null.
it's not going to render any of those. It's not going to render any of those like routes. So I can't go to like, if I go to login, it's not going to actually render my login component. So I can't, it's just not going to render any of these pages, like any of those parts.
So if you don't have a user, it's not going to show any of that.
I think this is where it's not if I don't have a user. This is just while I'm checking to see if I have a user.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
This check user doesn't get the user. It just checks to see, do you have a user, yes or no? And so let's look at the steps, what this check user goes through. But what it's going to do, what this component's going to do, it's going to prevent rendering anything while it's checking. It's like, okay, give me a second. I need to see if you have a user or not, because I need to figure this out. So what it's going to do, first of all, it's just going to say, hey, do you have a user? Like, is there some user state? So it's like, yes, that you do have a user. I'll set loaded to true. This is a very weird OR statement because it's also going to check if you do not have a token. This is a confusing if statement because it's kind of saying if you do have a user or you don't have a user. It's just checking, like, this is one case it knows for sure you have a user or for sure you don't have a user. It knows for sure you don't have a user here because you don't have that token. Does that make sense? Like, if you don't have this token, then you definitely do not have a valid logged in user. So it can just say, hey, loaded is true, and you can render. And you can return. And what actually the return is, so it's going to set loaded to true. This function is going to stop, but once loaded is true, then we can render props.children. It's like, then we can render the route. So it doesn't really matter so I can log out. It doesn't really matter if I have a user or not. It's just checking to see if you do. But it does one other check. So you either have a user or you don't have a access token. But then there's kind of this third case. This is where, like, you don't have a user, so the user is not authenticated, but you have an access token in local storage. So what you need to check is that token is valid. Because this could also work if, like, you're like on a website and maybe that token's valid for like 2 weeks. So someone could turn off their computer, that token could be stored on their browser for a week, and then they go to your website and they're logged in. Like, they don't have to log in because that token is still living in local storage.
Is that like when a site asks you to remember this device? That's similar.
It's not quite the same. This is also what's going to happen when we refresh the page. Because when we refresh the page, you're going to destroy your user, but you're going to have a token. But we're not going to it's not going to know if that token's valid because it doesn't have a concept of like, did you just refresh the page or have you not been on the website for a year? Like, there's no like way of keeping track of time. But this is where we have a token, but we don't have a user. So we have to do an API call. And this is the path, get API auth validate token. So if this is valid, this will return the user. Res.data.data will be the user. If this fails, it means that token is invalid. So it's really not like an error. It's just like this token is like stale. It's not valid anymore. So you don't have a user. But then either way, we set loaded to true. So this component, this fetch user, it's just kind of before you render the routes, it's just asking, do you or do you not have a user? And it does do this extra call of like, if you have a token, but you don't have a user, let's go check to see if that token's valid. And if it is valid, let's set the user. And this is going to make the refresh work. It would also make it work if like you close Chrome and like, 10 minutes later you open it up, it should be there. Now you can go in on the back end and like tell how long you want the token to be valid for. You could say like, I want this token to have like, 5-minute life or a year life. It's kind of, let's see if I come into here and I do local storage.clear. So I'm going to clear my local storage. If I refresh, I'm logged out because I destroyed my token. It didn't even have one. Like now I don't have a token. So I'm not logged in. But yeah, but this is the other thing we want to do. We should not be able to come here if we're not logged in. We should redirect to the login page. So we're going to make another component for this. I should maybe put these in the auth folder. I guess it doesn't matter. Okay. That might make sense for the fetch user and this other component to go into the auth because they're kind of auth components, but I'll just throw them in here for now. Okay, so I'm going to make a component called protected route.js. And I'm going to make this kind of work like this, like it's going to be like this route component, but I kind of want it to be like this special protected route component. Okay, so for this one, actually kind of doing this a little different because React Router 6 kind of gives us kind of a little cool tool. So let's try doing it like this. So I'm going to grab navigate and outlet from React Router DOM. I'm also going to grab my use context hook from React and my auth context from my provider. And I'm going to make this component. I don't know if I'm going to use props on this. Let's see, props. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my user. So I'm going to do const auth equals use context auth provider. Oh, sorry, auth context. So just grabbing this data. So what I want to do here is I want to check, well, I'm going to see return. So do I have auth.user? Do I have that user state? Like I'm only going to have the user state if they logged in. If they do, I'm going to return an outlet component. Cool. If not, I'm going to use this navigate component, and this will just essentially redirect them to the login to wherever I tell them. So I'm going to say, hey, go to the login page. And then I can export default protected route. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to go to my app.js. And I'm now going to, let's see here. Let's do this. Let's do my route component. I want to see if I can do it this way. An element equals protected route. And then I'm going to, these are going to be nested. Well, we don't need to nest this hidden one, or the page not found one. Oh, that can't be a self-closing tag. I think there's some components. So there are a couple components I don't need to be logged into, right? To see, like I shouldn't be logged in to see my login page. So I'm not going to throw that in there. Same thing with my register page. So these would technically, like these are unprotected. And these are my protected ones. So let's see, let's go here. Let's go to my home class. Localhost 3000. I can't go there now. Because I'm not logged in. If I log in, oh, I need to log in. Now I can. Now I can go to /home. And I can log
Wouldn't
out.
that be considered like a bad UX though? Because if someone goes to your website and then they try to hit home and it's just not working, just sending them to like log in.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe you don't want your home page. I get what you're saying. But yeah, so we could have like, let's say.
Or is there like a way to hide the link so they don't see it until they're logged in?
Oh yeah, I mean, we could do that in our nav bar. So we could do, yeah, kind of the same thing here. Like, yeah, let's do render left. Because yeah, that would be like, we don't want to. Well, I feel like don't some websites do that, but I get what you're saying. Render left. Let's render left. Turn. You know, where we could do something like this. If, oh, I don't want to do that in the, so if we have a user, you know, we can go ahead and return the links that we want to show if they're used like logged in. Why doesn't it look like this? What doesn't it look like? Oh, that's
You
not.
need a fragment.
Yeah, I need a fragment. So yeah, I mean, totally could do something like that. Is that if auth.user. Oh, I still have those there. You know, this isn't like not working, but let's pretend like this is link to visible to all, right? But it's just how we have it set up. Why is that still like, so yeah, I'm not working, like I'm on a login page. Let's just, I mean, I don't have this set up, but let's just say there was a link where anyone could go to. And we could do that like this by saying the home.js. Let's not use any of this auth stuff. And you know, in my auth app.js, just don't make that a protected route. Like now it's not protected because it's not within this section. And then yeah, in my nav bar, I could just say home, and then this one could be like home protected. So I could go home. So there's my home component. I'm not logged in, but I can't go to that one that's protected because that one actually breaks if I'm not, like this one actually it has an error if I'm not logged in, just with how I set it up. But now I can log in. And then I can go to that home protected one. And then it's the logout. So yeah, you can create whatever kind of UX you want. The idea with this protected route is, you know, any routes inside of here, you need to be logged in. You know, if you're not, else you go into, else we redirect you to the login page.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. I feel like that wasn't that hard either.
No, and this actually with Rel 6 makes this a lot nicer. I should show you. That's definitely a cleaner way to do that. I should just show you what it looks like in Rails 5. It's not as friendly. There's the protected route in Rails 5. but it's kind of doing the same thing. It's checking like, hey, are you authenticated? Render the component. If not, redirect to the page. So yeah, this outlet component's pretty sweet. Because then we can just do this nesting stuff in our app.js. And any route we throw inside of here is going to be protected. Okay, so what time are we at? Oh man, we're at... Okay, so I would say right here at this point, this would be the point of your starter project. Like this would probably be where you would want to like stop. So like I would do like a git add. We're gonna go a little longer today, so you can start, because I do want to show, because now we need to go back to the back end. So I could be like auth setup. Done. This would definitely be a good time to like, you know, this is done, right? We can, it's a ton of work, right? But we've done quite a bit. Like, so we have this concept of like, you know, we can register a new user. Do I already have a user 3x? Oh, I probably don't have my server running. You know, I can register a user and then like show different routes based on like that user being logged in. I can log out, and go ahead and log back in, you know, with that user and like refresh. I mean, it's a lot of work for those couple of things. But let's go ahead and let's do like the thing you're going to need for your homework. So this is where like, yeah, you'd probably want to like clone down from your starter project. But let's just go from here. So now we're kind of going into like cat Tinderland. And maybe we'll probably give you Monday too to work on this. But so what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a model cat. So this is just going to have a name. These are all going to be strings: breed, avatar. Okay. Now also I want to add, I'm going to add a column to my user. So I'm going to do this with a migration file, just like we did with those other fields. I want to add a migration. So I'm going to add light cats to user. And I'm going to say this liked cats text. And I'll select this out. But what this is going to do is it's going to create this migration. But since I did this in such like a nice way, it's actually going to fill out the migration file for me. So let's go look at this migration file. Could go to notice that this is all stubbed out. It's going to add the column users. So it's adding this column to my users table like cats, which is going to be a text. So it's not string, it's text, which is just meant to hold more. It's like a long string. You could kind of think of it that way. And now whenever I create a migration file, I need to migrate. So Rails DB migrate. So we're doing some more migration stuff with this lecture. That just adds this like cats to my user model. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to also just go to my routes.js or routes.rb. I'm going to throw this in Slack too, for the sake of time. So inside of here, we can add this. So we're doing namespace and resource routing, but we can use the only key on here and say, hey, I want to do resources on cats, but this is only going to give me my index route and my route to update. Do I have my server running? I stopped my server. Just so what we can see what that did exactly. Let's just look at our routes. I just have, these get API/cats and then a put for API/cats and then the ID of the cat.
Do you replace everything in your routes.rb with what you select out, or do you?
No, I definitely, yeah, I need this mount. I need this stuff. I just added it within the do end. Definitely need this. This is generating all of these devise rails, these paths. I get rid of that, those would all go away and my app would break. So this like generates all our devise paths, or I should say routes. Okay. What next? Once again, I'm going to Slack this out just so we can more talk about it. So this, what I just slacked out, you're going to throw in your cat, in your user model. So we do have a user, I can go to the command user, change that, command P user.rb. And just throw that like within the class. So interesting thing here. So we have like cats. Like cats is text in our DB, but we want to treat it like an array in our code. So we like serialize it. So what this does is this this helps us so we can store, because we can't store arrays in a database, but we can convert that array to a string and store this. Like we can take an array, convert it to text, and then store the text in a database. But then when we pull it out from our database, we can convert it back into an array. It's kind of like what we do with JSON. It's like we can take a JavaScript object, convert it to JSON, which is just essentially a string, or we can go back. And then we have two class methods. This one's going to grab all unliked cats. No, it should probably just be called unliked cats. And then this method grabs all liked cats. But we need to, and then IDs is going to be the list of users liked cats. So when we call this method, we need to pass it this users liked cats array. It's going to be in an array because we serialize it. Okay. So let's go to our cats controller, because this is really kind of more like the new, did we not generate a cats controller? Guess we got to generate a cats controller. So I'll select this out. So we're just generating a cats controller and namespacing it with API, and we can say index and update, and it'll just create those methods for us. It just stubs them out. It doesn't actually do anything. But if I now go to my cats controller, I now have like an index and update method. Okay, so something, here's like the thing I really wanted to get to before we go to lunch. So now we're kind of going back to, it's still like authentication, because what I want to do in my index method, I want to return like the logged in users. Like now I'm referring to like the user as the person who is logged in. It's kind of like now it's like the show method where I want to grab just the information of one specific user, and that's going to be the logged in user. We're going to call this is going to be called current user. All right. So let's just see what this is. Let's see how let's do this. Let's do before action. So I'm going to do a before action, and this is a device token, like this is a device token auth here. I'm going to do this authenticate user bang.
Is the bang like an important? Say
What
like
it's doing is it's going to set what's called current user. So render JSON current user. Well, what the hell is current user? Let's do this. Let's create some seed data. This is just and I'm going to do this as well. How do we create a user? U1. Let's just do I'm going to make this 10, so it's a little easier to see. I think I actually got rid of this registry. Also, I'm going to reselect this out, user.create. So if I want to create a user, I just need to give it an email, a valid email, and unique, and a password. 6, let's create 2 users. 1 plus 2. We're going to create, here we create 10 cats. Remember, we have this like cats attribute, which is really just going to be an array of numbers. So I could say, hey, push, let's use the push method so it's a little more readable. Push 1. Push 2. Actually, let's just do this here. I don't need Lincoln. This is like a kind of weird way to do this, but what I'm saying is, user 1 is going to like the cats that have ID 1 and 2. User 2 is going to like the cats that have ID 3 and 4. Maybe I want to do like a destroy all and the cat. Destroy all. I don't know. We are kind of going way too long. Yeah. No. I want to get this done, but I think it's going to take too long to even get to a point. Let's just get this index method working for now. I'm just going to render this current user. And then as a bonus for over the weekend, this might give you a place to start. But then when we come back on Monday, we can review everything and we can finish this. This is there's a lot of stuff here in this lecture. So now, like for today and tomorrow, yesterday and today and the weekend, you can really just focus on your starter project. But I do just want to show this last piece of authentication and what this current user is, just so we can see this. So I do have one route set up, the index, and it's just rendering the current user. Right? This is in my cats controller. And if I look at my routes, I should be able to do a GET request to API/cats. So let's do that. API/cats. And I get an error. So I'm just trying to do this in my browser. It's saying you need to sign up or sign in before continuing. So now I can't, this has nothing to do with React. I haven't done anything with my React app as far as this is concerned. It's like I'm trying to hit my Rails app. I'm trying to go to API cats. It's not working. I need to be signed in. Okay, so to kind of simulate this, let's go to let's do this in my home.js. or which I guess let's do it here. And we can just do this use effect right here. So I'm going to say get cats because that's eventually what this is going to be. But let's write this function const get cats. This is where I'm going to do that axios call async. I'm going to do this in a try catch. I'm going to have some state. I'm just going to call this data. I'm going to get this like halfway through. Use state. So let response equal await. We'll do our axios.get /API/cats. So I'm going to try to do this on the front end, and then we can set data to res.data. And then here I'll also set data to just the error. And then we can JSON.stringify this. So my home component, remember, doesn't really, it's not protected. It's not really checking anything. So I'm going to go back to my React app that's running on localhost 3001. I am logged in. Let's go home. Notice my data, and notice also what what am I rendering? If I go back to my cats controller, like current user, what the hell is current user? Well, current user is the logged in user. If I log out and I try going to that page, so now I'm not logged in. I tried to do that API call and then I get the 40, there's like my 401 error. Because I don't have a valid access token because I logged out. So this, and that's why I wanted to get to this point before we, go off for the weekend. This is the last piece of authentication because we go back to our backend, and what we can do is before our actions, we can authenticate the user. So this is going to check the token that was sent in request. And if the token is valid, it will set this current user, which you can think of as the logged in user making a request. If token is invalid, send back 401 error. So now our back end is protected. So even if on our front end, so I have this home page that someone can access and tries to do an axios call, it's not going to work. Like our back end's going to get this call and it's not going to work because they're not logged in. They need to log in, and then they can go home, and then that will work. If they're not logged in, they try to go home, no valid token, 401.
Did you have a set data state on your homepage?
On my, yeah, so what I did on my homepage, just to do this quick, I have this data state.
Got you.
So yeah, and I'm using it both for the if it's successful or if it's an error. So here we like try to do this call, but you know, we need a valid token. We need to send. How is that getting sent? Well, it's that devise Axios package. That's kind of setting that up. Okay. But yeah, I'm going to push this up. I think this gives us the basics of not for the MySpace homework. We'll have to like give you Monday for that, but this gives you the basics for authentication. It's kind of like the basic complete picture. Yeah, sorry, I took a little extra, but I really wanted to get to this authenticate user part and this current user. So before all of our actions in our controller, we can authenticate the user, and if the token's valid, then we're going to have this current user set in those methods. If it's not valid, the method won't even run. It'll just return a 401.
Is this something we'd want to put on our starter project? This last part?
You could like maybe have like a method that like a home page that when you log in says like, I don't know, probably not.
Okay.
It's really not that much, like, because then you'd need like a specific controller.
Right, yeah.
You might want to just have like, it's fine if on your starter project you had like a demo controller, like a things controller, or like an example controller, where it's like, it's for your use to like kind of be like, oh, here's some things that I can kind of go back to.
Like if you wanted to, you could just copy that.
Yeah.
And kind of do it for different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, as we get to like the back, like the controller stuff, this is definitely going to be more specific to the apps. It's kind of hard to make this generic because it's already so like device token. This is really easy to just call this authenticate user and then grab the current user.
Right.
So cool. Well, sweet. I need to hop off, but I have a meeting. I will push this up. And then, yeah, if there's any questions, we can just answer them at lunch. Go take a break. This is up on GitHub. I'll push up the videos. So yeah, let's come back we'll call it 2:30 since we went so long. And we'll see you then.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.